Hey, welcome back, guys, to the Deal Finders podcast. I'm excited to have a good friend, Jesse, here with me from our local market to talk about rental properties and property management. So if you're new to this podcast, you can like and subscribe to it here, but also check us out on YouTube as we put everything there. You can check out all the past podcasts and then, of course, this one as well. So without further ado, let's get into this podcast. So, Jesse, thank you for being here. I'd like to just start out with letting people know who you are, where you're from, what your business is right now. So, take a few seconds, minute to do that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Sure.
I'm a real estate broker and property manager. I've been doing it since 2005. We have my own company called Stevenson Property Group.
Okay.
We kind of focus on the property management side of the business more, but we do both. And we have an office. We work out of Chapin,
Okay.
and we just opened actually a new office location right there on 520 Columbia Avenue, right between the, if you know Chapin, right between the Goodwill and the Sozu Fitness there off of Columbia Avenue.
Okay.
But I have a few employees. I have my mother, I know, it's kind of interesting having your mom work for you, but
Yeah.
she spent 30 years in the Army, retired as a colonel,
Oh, wow.
and so she's used to being the boss.
Yeah, that'd be tough. If we had any colonel, much less your mother as the colonel.
Yes, but she was a chaplain in the Army,
Okay, yeah.
and anyway, so she's sort of she's like my office manager,
Okay.
so she kind of helps me stay organized, because I'm kind of a big picture guy, and she's more of a detail-oriented person.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps because I just see things or think things and say, let's do it. And then she's like, well, how are we going to do it? I'm like, I don't know. This is
Yeah, I love that.
So, yeah. And then I have a leasing agent who shows all our rental properties named Amber. And then I have my wife, Vanessa, she's got her property management license, and she helps us with a lot of other all the renewals for all the renters, and then also all the renewals for the landlord management agreements.
Right.
So she helps us stay on top of all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So I will say, for any of y'all that are listening that are thinking about renting out a house, or maybe you already rent a few houses out, I will tell you right now, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. You make it sound so wonderful. It is so difficult to be a landlord, and the reason that property management groups like you exist is because it takes a certain skill set, and it takes a lot of dedication to working with people and follow up, and all that. So we'll get into that. I'll just tell you, the having your mother work with you, that's one thing. But now hearing what you're saying, kind of having you as the visionary and the entrepreneur, and now your mom is the integrator, right? The one that gets things done. That is a great duo, and I don't know if you've read any of the EOS books like Traction or Rocket Fuel, so I'm going to tell you that. I might send you home with one when we leave here, but it's a game changer for those entrepreneurs that are starting businesses or growing businesses. Sounds like that's where you two have landed, which is cool. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. I like to, with our podcast, give the listeners and watchers some actionable steps, some things that maybe you went through that you can give advice on, or that you've seen happen that you can give advice on for people. And so let's go all the way back to the very beginning. What was your first deal in real estate? Did you buy something? Did you rent? Were you helping someone rent? Like, what did that look like?
So, I mean, when you say like my first deal, like on something I bought for myself or just for helping people, either way.
How was your first step into real estate?
My first step into real estate was way back in 2005 when I became a real estate agent. I was living in San Antonio. But the whole reason I got into real estate was because I wanted to do deals. And so I thought, oh, well, what better way to learn how to do deals than become an agent?
Yeah.
Little did I know that, I don't know, in some ways then you get caught up in the weeds of doing that business.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it's amazing how many real estate agents I know who don't own real estate other than their house.
Yes. Yes.
And so it took me a while to get into actually buying my own deals and things like that. But anyways, that was 2005 in San Antonio, Texas, is when I used to live there. And from, if you remember back in 2005, I mean, it was kind of like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, houses were just selling like crazy, full price and everything. And it was, it was a good time to be a real estate agent. But then a few short years later, things
Things changed really fast.
Things changed, yes. And it's funny because back then I never thought I'd want to do property management back then. Like I was like, oh, tenants and toilets, I don't think so,
Yeah.
But by the time 2009 hit, my income dropped drastically.
Right.
And
as an agent.
yes, as a real estate agent. But then one of my good buddies had a property management company, and his business was booming in 2009. I was like, because everybody who couldn't sell their house but needed to move, and also all these people who no longer could get approved for loans,
Right.
all of a sudden needed to rent a place, and so his business was doing really good, and that's when I kind of opened my eyes to the idea of doing property management.
Okay.
So.
So you didn't buy an investment property that
whole time? Yeah. I was still kind of new, and I just, the only thing I bought was my own condo. I bought a condo, and I used one of those, like, if you can breathe, you can get a loan type of loans. Stated income, they used to call them. Yeah. It was my first year in real estate, and they just said, "How much do you make?" I said, $60,000. And they didn't ask how.
They didn't ask how did you get to that number.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I got a condo. That was my first deal. If you wanted, so my own was a little condo in San Antonio. But anyways, but then I moved to. But then when everything kind of dried up, my mother, who was still working in the Army at that time, she was here at Fort Jackson.
Okay.
And she was like, "Hey, I think I can help you probably get a government job here in Columbia."
Yeah.
And so at the time I was like, oh, I did not want to leave Texas. I really like Texas a lot.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, this was August, and I was thinking, oh, at least Columbia is going to be cooler.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
I was like, I'm looking at the map. I'm like, it's further north. It's got to be cooler than San Antonio, Texas.
Nope.
I get here and it's like, this is the same temperature almost. Maybe
like
more
twice
humid.
the humidity. Yeah, it's worse.
So I was like, I was in for a little bit of a shock there, but honestly, it was a blessing, and it was a blessing in disguise because I moved here, and I was single, and I was in debt because of behind on my taxes and all this kind of stuff. Because when you're in real estate, they don't take taxes out of your paychecks.
Right. You got to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I got here with that government job. I met my wife Vanessa within 6 weeks of living here.
Wow.
And then within 6 months we were married.
Wow.
And it was one blessing after another after that. But anyways, when I was in this government job, I was working with all these officers in the military, and they all knew my mom, and they already trusted her.
Right.
And they knew I'd already been in real estate for 5 years at that point.
Right.
And so what I did was I got my real estate license here, and I started telling all these soldiers, hey, I'm a property manager. If you, whenever you move, if you want to keep your house and rent it, I'll manage it for you.
Like it.
And so within 2 years, I went from 0 to 35 houses that I was managing.
Yeah.
And then I quit my job.
Wow.
But I was smart. Before I quit, I used my job and my property management income to get qualified for a house.
Yeah, there you go.
And then
get the plan ahead. Don't just jump ship.
Yeah, we bought a house in Chapin.
Yeah.
And then literally the day after closing, I put in my 2 weeks notice on the job.
Yeah.
And then actually God blessed me with I got a call that week, and someone gave me, we're not more than one person, but I got 10 more properties to manage that week that I put in my 2 weeks notice.
Wow.
And so it's been it's been one blessing after another.
Obviously full time doing it since then.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you hit on that I really want to tackle here and kind of help people understand and see it, and my numbers might be wrong, so y'all fact check me. You can put it in the comments, right? But I think I heard that 60%, it might be more than this, 60% of real estate agents don't even own their own home. They've
not
never
even their own home.
Yeah, not even the one they live in.
Oh wow.
So they have never bought a home before, but they're real estate agents. And the law says they are fiduciarily responsible for their client. And that's tough to swallow. And now, and you understand why there's so many agents that are licensed but don't do any work.
Right.
And then you go to the next level and you talk about you want to be an investor, you want to buy and rent houses out. If you go and you hang out with real estate agents, you will find that almost none of them know anything about investing because they don't have investment properties.
Right.
Because that's not the way that agents were taught or shown how to do the business. For whatever reason, I think it's something like 5% of agents actually have an investment property. And it may even be like that's just their could be second home, vacation home type stuff like that. So there's a lot of folks that see real estate as the investor mindset of all the benefits, the tax benefits, the cash flow benefits, the depreciation, the appreciation, all of that. And they see, well, you know what? The easiest thing to do is go be an agent. Mm-hmm. I'll go get my license and then I'll invest.
Yeah.
It's really two separate paths. Being an agent is a job. It's a career, and if you're good at that and you like that, you can go that route. But it does not make you an investor.
Right.
And so I love that you figured that out and saw that and kind of lived that life.
Yeah.
But anybody that's out there that's kind of thinking of that, the two they're a little bit. That's just different. Mm-hmm. And if you have the investor mindset, you don't necessarily want to be an agent. You may have your license, but not an agent.
If you have, or what you have to do is don't just hang out with all these agents who don't have houses.
Right. Yes.
Get your license, but then go find people like you and other people that are doing deals and hang out with them.
That's right.
Because they'll tell you the real deal, and and learn. You'll learn from them, and you can have your license and make some commissions along the way too. But the problem is you get sucked up into just the office culture, and if you're hanging out with a lot of agents who don't invest, you're not going to learn what you thought you were going to learn.
Right. It's just different. So that's exactly a good point. Get connected. Here locally, we have our Deal Finders Live, where that's what we seek to do is connect, help people connect, investors to connect, help them learn and grow their businesses, build their businesses. So get connected wherever you are, and there's got to be an investment group. So make sure you get into a local investment group. So for you started, and this is what I wanted to highlight for anybody that's out there that's listening. We have what's called like a wide fan. We call it, it's an acronym. It's wide fan method for going out and finding deals. Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the ways that you used this method was telling people about your service as a property manager. Mm-hmm. You had a job and you knew people. We call that a network. Mm-hmm. You had a network and you were just letting people know that, hey, you know what, I can do this for you. I can do this. We tell people if you want to buy houses, you should tell everyone you know that you want to buy houses. Right. If you want to manage properties, tell everybody you know. So tell me, how did that shake out as you were telling people?
Well, like I said, I was working in the Army chaplain school with all these chaplains. My mom was a chaplain, and so there was some inherent trust there, especially with kind of the faith-based people. And and I just started over the water cooler talking to people, and especially when because you would hear, oh, hey, he's getting ready to PCS to Alaska or something. And also, you have to remember, this was like in 2011, 12, 13. Yeah. And this is when a lot of people if you had bought a house in 2010, 11, 12, especially with a zero down VA loan, it's probably not worth any more than just
what you paid for it.
Yeah, maybe like 2% or something. Yeah. So like they had no equity, most of these people. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them knew that, and a lot of soldiers are smart. They'll buy houses in each little spot, and they turn them into rentals. Mm-hmm. And that's like their retirement sort of plan, you know. And so anyways, so I knew a lot of these people had houses with little equity, and I just talked to them, and they just hired me. They trusted me, I was the first person they talked to about it, and I had that, sort of that first mover advantage of already knowing they're getting ready to move. Yeah, you know what I mean.
But that's it. That's exactly what it is. When you talk to people that are in your network, when you're at the office or you're down the street, you're walking your neighborhood, you get the first knowledge. They told you first that, hey, I'm thinking of renting, blah, blah, blah. And most people, whether it's selling, renting, buying, once they've said it to someone else, like if that person can solve that problem or solve that, what they're looking for, they don't go shopping for anyone else. I can almost guarantee most of those folks, you said you could do it, and they're like, Great, check that off my list, because now I have to go
One less
pack
thing.
and move and deal. So as local house buyers, and this is our business, this is what we teach, is as local house buyers, people have to know what you do, whether you buy houses or manage houses. So I love that, and that's one thing. If y'all had to take something from this podcast, please take that and use that. Tell people what you do. So tell me a little bit about your business now. We're talking a little bit before the camera, but where is it going now as the Stevenson?
Yeah, so we just opened a new, like I was telling, a new office in Chapin. It's funny, I've been working, I've had a quote-unquote office in Columbia downtown, but even when I had that office in downtown, I was still working out of my house mostly. I was just using it as a corporate location to get mail and rent and things. But now we actually have a brick-and-mortar office in Chapin, because it's funny, we moved to Chapin in 2015, and still, up until just like this year, I was only managing like 2 or 3 houses in Chapin.
Wow.
And all my houses were like, I managed about 150 rentals.
Wow.
And like 140 of them were in other parts of the city.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I need to market but I wasn't doing some of the right things like marketing myself in Chapin enough.
Right.
And so I was like, I need to get an office in Chapin, that way I can be on Google Maps. And then I need to start. Also, I was never part of like the Chapin Chamber of Commerce. I finally joined it like 2 years ago.
Makes sense.
And then, so I started networking more. I have an office in Chapin, because my goal was like, if I could get to like 80 rentals that are in Chapin or like Irmo, like within like 10 miles of my house, it'd be so much easier than managing houses all over Richland and Lexington County at some point. Or I just keep hiring more people.
Open up another office.
Yes, exactly. But so that, right now we manage around 135 long-term rentals, and we manage about 20 Airbnbs, like VRBOs. Short-term rentals. And one thing I've learned recently, especially with some of these, I have a few high-end lake houses. Even in the winter, I was surprised, even in the winter, people are booking these lake houses, especially if they can fit like more than 10 people, like the bigger ones.
Oh, yeah?
Because they're getting together for like family get-togethers and like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Makes sense.
So I have one that we managed, we just started managing it a few months ago on beautiful big house that sleeps 15 people.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the owners were like, this is our second house, so we're going to use it in the summertime, but we'll let you manage it in the winter. I was just like, okay. But I was like, how many people are going to book this place in the winter?
See. Yeah.
But we had like 3 bookings in October, every weekend in November, and every weekend in December, plus some weekdays.
Right.
It was booked. They did like almost $10,000 a month in November and December.
Wow.
And I was thinking, how much money would they make in the summertime when you could raise the rates and
rushing it?
And I was just like, but it is what it is. And maybe now that they see how much money they can make, maybe they'll be like, hey, we're gonna take a vacation, and you can use it while we're on vacation.
Yeah, you can have it for May, but we're coming in June.
So, but anyway, so I realized, I kind of like that side of the business too, because I like dealing with people on vacation and doing family get-togethers and just creating memories. And also, if they're bad tenants, they're going to be gone in 2 days anyway.
Yeah, they're gone anyway. It's easy, right?
You don't get stuck with a bad tenant for like a year and a half or something.
Yeah, that is a great point.
Yes.
So I was going to ask you something about that, because we do the same thing. Our lake house over there has a tenant. This is the second January in a row where they booked the entire month of January so they could do home renovations.
Oh, nice.
So they're getting new floors, new kitchen, whatever. They just move in for a month. And last year may have been a emergency repair, but this one was a plan. So that's another good point. For the winter is nicer homes. People will use them as like a refuge for.
Yeah, I have a little house I bought in Chapin myself. And if you want to talk about deals, this could be one that we could talk about, I guess. It was interesting, and this is where it helps to just call signs. Even so, he had a for rent sign in front of it. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on a half-acre lot with no HOA, which is one of the key things I like. No HOA. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about the HOA telling you can't do Airbnb or something.
Yep.
But anyways, he had a for rent sign in front of it 2 years ago, and I called the for rent signs thinking, because I could tell it was by owner, Yeah. So I thought, maybe I can get him to hire me as a property manager.
Yeah.
And I called him, and he was like, no, I got it. But then he said, well, maybe if you can help me find a tenant, I'll manage it myself. I was like, okay, I can do that. But then but he never signed the deal, and then like a week later he found a tenant, and so I was like, oh well. But then like a year later, I saw so this guy was a builder owner. He built the house and he owned it.
Yeah.
Then a year later, I saw he was building duplexes behind that house on another lot that he had. Yeah. And so I went up to him and I was like, oh, I'd love to own a duplex in Chapin. So I said, hey, are these for sale or what? And he's like, well, I think I got someone for it already. This doctor wants to buy them. But you know that red house that you called me about last year, that tenant that I got is moving out in a month. And he said, he said, I'll sell it to you, that house. Wow. And I said, oh, like what kind of, terms or whatever? He said, I'll sell owner finance. And I was like, my light bulbs are going off.
Oh, yeah. Let me see this. Yeah.
And this was a year ago in November. So I've owned it now for a year and 2 months. So the interest rates at November last year, the interest rates were already like over 6%, like bank rate interest. Yeah, right. Yeah. And normally with like owner finance deals, they're going to charge you more than what the banks are charging. Right. And then want big down payments and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And he said to me, if you give me 5% down and 5% interest, we can have a deal. I was like, 5% down and 5% interest. I was like, sign me up. The only catch was he wanted basically retail price. You know?
Right. Well, yeah, that's one of the things you get. Yeah.
He wanted a retail price, but the terms were so good. And he threw in a kicker though. He said, but if you give me 10% down, I'll knock $10,000 off the price. And I had 10%, and so I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'd rather give the 10% down and get another $10,000 off the price. Right. But the 5% interest is the part I loved about it. And here's the other great part of the terms that he did, and this is all him. And I'm just saying okay. Basically.
Yeah, like okay.
But he said, a lot of owner finance deals are like, I'll owner finance you for like 2 years, right? And then I want you to get your own loan. Yeah. This guy was the opposite. He said, he's like, this other house I owner financed, and then within a year they refinanced out of it, and then I didn't make any interest basically because they refied it. Yeah. So he's like, on this deal, he's like, I want you to stick with me for at least 7 years. Wow. But he says if you want, I'll finance it for 30 years. Like I'll let you keep paying me for 30 years. Wow. And I was like, okay, what are the terms? Like, what happens if I don't? That was another kicker though. He said, if you don't, if he put a prepayment penalty. Prepayment, yeah. And it was basically I would have to pay the interest for 7 years. So I was like,
pretty steep.
I was like, okay, I'm stuck in this house once I sign this deal. But I was okay because most of the time you're under the gun in the opposite direction where they're telling you go
get out, get out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways. All that to say, I bought that house and I furnished it, and the first lady came for a month to visit her family. Then the second guy said, hey, I'm moving to Chapin. I used to be from here. I want to buy a house. And I was like, well, do you have a real estate agent? He said, no. I was like, oh, well, can I be your real estate agent? And he was like, yes, sure, why not? So he rented my house from me, for 3 months. Wow. And I sold him a $650,000 house in Chapin. Wow. And so it was a win-win for, everybody.
That little house just keeps on paying off.
So that was a great little deal.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you kind of went into that. And I want to dissect that deal for just 1 second. For everyone that's listening and watching, is that we talk about this all the time, and this is the wide fan, which is the deals are right around you right now. They're in your backyard right now. But it takes a step. You have to take action. Deal finders have to take action. All you did, and it doesn't have to be scary hard action. All you did was a guy had a sign out that said, please call me and ask me questions. Right. And you did, right? And then that led to another guy, same guy, happened to be.
A year later,
and he's building, and you stop by and ask questions. Y'all, we say this all the time. If there's a sign, anything that says by owner, for sale by owner, for rent by owner, on Craigslist, Facebook, Zillow, whatever, they are begging for you to call them. It doesn't have to be scary to pick up the phone and call them. Just call and ask the question. You may have even been able to ask back then if you would sell. You may not have been thinking that at the time. But then fast forward a year, when people are building houses, investment properties, duplexes, things like that, I always love to stop if I see that the person in charge is there. Yeah, right. I love to stop and see who they are, what's going on. You can gain so much knowledge. They can find out who the contractors are, what's been good, what's been bad. Does the city like this sort of thing? Is this for sale? All of those questions are great for deal finders because they can lead to a deal, or they just give you more info to help you get to the next deal.
And the guy he built on that house that I bought. He built two of them identical. One was red and one was brown.
Yeah.
And literally 1 month after I bought the red one, he said he would sell me the brown one for the same terms.
Yeah.
But I had just bought the one. It was like $250,000, and so. And I didn't know if it was going to work yet. I mean, I felt with my gut feeling, I thought this is going to work. But I was thinking, what if it doesn't work? Then I don't want to get over leveraged, especially with the market kind of slowing down a little bit. Mm-hmm. But now, of course, I'm wishing I did. I wish I did buy it. Yeah. So someone else bought that other one, and they're doing the same thing. They're Airbnb in it, and they're killing it too. And I was like, I should have bought two, but I just didn't want to sign up for $500,000 within a month of each other. So close.
That's smart. That's wise. So I love where you're going now. Just one more question I wanted to give to the audience is, you're doing long-term rental, normal stuff, your leases or whatever, and you're doing short-term rental. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference? Do you see better for the business than one or the other?
Yes. I mean, it depends on the property. Obviously, not every... We took over a short-term rental that somebody did, that some real estate agent talked somebody into doing. It was in an HOA, in a cookie-cutter subdivision, like kind of far from everything.
Yep.
Like in West Columbia, but not even the good part of West Columbia, like almost like Red Bank or something.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it was an expensive house too. It was like a $360,000 house. And the guy spent $20,000 on furniture.
Wow.
And then right after he got all this stuff, and the HOA was like, no,
can't do that.
Yeah, and then he had $20,000 worth of furniture that he just bought, Yeah. But if he had asked us ahead of time, we would have told him this is not an ideal location. So first of all, location matters.
Yes.
You want to be in an area that makes sense. Why would people want to rent this house? Now, I mean, there are specific niches where that house could have worked. Like we did actually wanted to, for a while we rented it to a company that had some workers.
Right.
And so they rented it from us for like 4 months.
That's good.
But still, at the end of the day, we wound up, after that 4 months was up and some time went by, he sold the furniture and we turned it into a long-term rental because it just made more sense because the HOA didn't want it. And, so you got to have, the house has to make sense.
Right.
But as far as for my business, like what do we like managing more? Again, it also depends. Some people, I don't want to manage Airbnbs for properties that don't make sense for Airbnbs.
Right.
Because some people just want to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool. Everybody does it.
Yeah, but I mean, if your house doesn't have anything unique about it and not in a great location for maybe like at least for like Fort Jackson graduations or something, I'd rather just manage it as a long-term rental and put a good renter in there and take the and just make it easy for everyone.
Yeah.
But if you have a house that makes great sense for Airbnbs as a company, I mean, we like it because, you can make more money per month, on that high-end Airbnb. I made as much in 1 month in commissions as I did on a whole year of a long-term rental.
Right. That makes sense.
So, but it is more work. It's a lot more inspections and, maids and then you're always kind of rolling the dice hoping that no one has a crazy party at your house or something. Yeah. So there's that stress factor where a long-term tenant, especially if you get a good one, sometimes you get a good long-term tenant, you don't even hear from them for like 2 years. Right. They just pay the rent on time.
Pay the rent. Yeah.
So there's pros and cons. Sometimes it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about, is this a headache or not? Mm-hmm. So we like both. I mean, I like to diversify and do both.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.